A 911 call came into Horry County Dispatch at approximately 9 a.m. on June 7th, 2023. The caller's voice was frantic, barely coherent, as they reported an unresponsive 18-year-old woman at a vacation rental on Maison Drive in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. "She's not breathing," the caller said, panic evident in their voice. "We tried CPR, but she's cold. She's been dead for hours." The dispatcher immediately sent paramedics and police officers to the scene. As emergency responders raced through the quiet morning streets of Myrtle Beach, the caller's words suggested they were already too late to save whoever needed help. The vacation rental should have been filled with the laughter of recent high school graduates celebrating their freedom. Instead, the caller was reporting what sounded like a tragic death during what was supposed to be the best week of their young lives. When the first police units arrived, they found a group of traumatized teenagers from Ohio standing outside the house. The responding officers quickly determined this wasn't a routine medical emergency requiring only paramedic response. The circumstances described by the caller immediately raised suspicions. Why had these young people waited hours before calling for help? How had someone died in a house full of friends without anyone noticing until morning? Within minutes of arrival, the officers had called for detective support and begun securing what they suspected might be more than just a tragic accident. The 911 call had initiated what would become a complex homicide investigation. When Horry County detectives arrived at the Maison Drive rental, they encountered a scene that immediately confirmed their suspicions about the circumstances of this death. The house that should have been filled with celebration had become a carefully staged crime scene. Inside the bedroom, 18-year-old Natalie Jane Martin lay lifeless on the floor. Her body position was inconsistent with natural death or suicide, and investigators immediately recognized signs that would guide their investigation. The bedroom showed subtle but telling evidence of violence. Furniture was slightly displaced, bedding was disheveled in patterns that suggested a struggle, and the overall scene painted a picture of someone who had fought desperately before succumbing to an attacker. Most significantly, Natalie's neck bore unmistakable signs of manual strangulation. The specific pattern of injuries indicated sustained pressure applied by human hands, making it impossible to categorize this as an accidental death. The bedroom door had been locked from the inside, a crucial detail that raised immediate questions about why someone would secure themselves with a deceased person for an extended period. This physical evidence suggested deliberate concealment rather than a discovery of tragedy. Crime scene photographers began their meticulous documentation, while investigators noted that there were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of robbery, and no indication that an outsider had been involved. The scene pointed clearly to an intimate partner homicide. Investigators found no evidence of sexual assault or any other type of physical violation beyond the fatal strangulation. This focused their attention on determining who had been alone with Natalie and when the murder had occurred. Among the group of traumatized teenagers at the scene was Blake William Linkous, 18 years old, whose behavior immediately drew investigators' attention. While the other friends appeared genuinely shocked and grieving, Blake's demeanor seemed calculated and performative. Blake was bleeding from what appeared to be self-inflicted stab wounds to his chest. The cuts were superficial, painful enough to draw blood, but not deep enough to cause serious injury. Investigators recognized these as classic hesitation marks, typically associated with staged suicide attempts. His explanation for the wounds raised immediate red flags. Blake claimed he had tried to take his own life after finding Natalie dead, but his timeline and behavior didn't support this narrative. If he had just discovered a close friend's death, why hadn't he immediately called for help? Blake's emotional responses seemed inappropriate for someone who had lost a friend. Rather than genuine devastation, his behavior appeared focused on controlling the narrative and garnering sympathy for his own situation. The other friends confirmed that Blake had emerged from the locked bedroom at approximately 9 a.m., bleeding and claiming he couldn't wake Natalie up. But they also provided crucial information. Blake had been alone in that room for approximately 10 hours. Investigators learned that Blake and Natalie had previously dated for about 3 years before breaking up several months earlier. Despite the breakup, both had remained part of the same friend group and had planned to attend this graduation celebration together. Blake appeared cooperative during initial questioning, but became evasive when asked about specific details of the previous evening. His responses suggested someone trying to manage information rather than someone seeking justice for a dead friend. The combination of Blake's suspicious wounds, his extended time alone with the body, and his relationship history with the victim made him investigators' immediate focus as the primary suspect. The systematic collection of physical evidence at the Maison Drive crime scene began building an unshakable case against Blake Linkous. Every piece of evidence told the same story. Natalie Martin had been murdered by someone she knew and trusted. Crime scene investigators started with comprehensive photography, documenting every angle of the bedroom where Natalie was found. The images captured not only the position of her body, but also the blood patterns from Blake's self-inflicted wounds, which would later prove significant to the timeline. The medical examiner's preliminary examination confirmed manual strangulation as the cause of death. The specific injuries to Natalie's neck were consistent with sustained pressure applied by human hands for several minutes, eliminating any possibility of accidental death. Fingerprint analysis throughout the bedroom revealed only prints belonging to Natalie and Blake, confirming that no outsider had been involved. The absence of defensive wounds on Natalie's hands suggested she had been attacked while vulnerable, likely while sleeping. DNA samples were collected from both the victim and suspect, along with trace evidence including fibers and hair samples. Blood spatter analysis of Blake's wounds and the surrounding bedding revealed that his injuries had been inflicted well after Natalie's death. The blood patterns were consistent with someone deliberately cutting themselves rather than injuries sustained during a genuine struggle or suicide attempt. The breakthrough in the Natalie Martin murder case came through digital evidence that Blake Linkous couldn't manipulate or destroy. The electronic footprint of their final hours together provided investigators with precision that physical evidence alone couldn't achieve. Cell phone tower data revealed that Natalie's phone went completely silent at 10:17 p.m. on June 6, 2023, and never showed activity again. Blake's phone also stopped showing activity at 10:17 p.m., but resumed exactly 45 minutes later with a single text message that would serve as his confession. At 11:02 p.m., he sent a message to his father. "I got mad and screwed up. I love you guys forever. I really don't want to do this, but I have to." The text message records revealed the motive that had driven Blake to murder. Analysis of the phones showed that Natalie had been texting another boy who lived in Myrtle Beach shortly before both phones went silent. For Blake, this communication represented an unforgivable betrayal. Further investigation revealed a threatening message Blake had sent to Natalie on May 5, 2023. "If you hate me so much, I just want you to try to find someone else so I can beat their ass and feel a lot better about it." This text demonstrated his ongoing obsession with controlling her. Digital forensics experts also analysed patterns of communication between Blake and Natalie, revealing his attempts to monitor and control her activities even after their breakup. The data painted a picture of escalating possessiveness that had culminated in murder. Social media analysis provided additional insight into Blake's state of mind, showing someone who had never accepted the end of their relationship and viewed Natalie's independence as a personal attack. The reconstruction of June 6th and 7th, 2023, revealed how a night of teenage celebration transformed into premeditated murder. The evening began with the group planning to attend an event at the House of Blues in North Myrtle Beach. Natalie sent her final text message to best friend Brooklyn Ferrell at 10:02 p.m., a simple communication between friends who had shared everything for years. Neither girl knew this would be their last exchange. As the evening progressed, Natalie began feeling unwell and decided to return to the rental early. Blake volunteered to accompany her back to the house along with one other person, while the majority of the group continued their celebration at the venue. Once back at the Maison Drive house, Blake discovered that Natalie was communicating with a local boy she had met during their vacation. This discovery triggered the rage that would lead to her death within minutes. The digital evidence showed that both phones went silent at exactly 10:17 p.m. During this crucial 15-minute window, Blake attacked Natalie in their shared bedroom, manually strangling her in a process that lasted approximately 3.5 minutes. After killing Natalie, Blake remained with her body for 45 minutes before sending the confession text to his father at 11:02 p.m. He then began the process of staging his suicide attempt and preparing his cover story. Meanwhile, other friends began returning from House of Blues around 10:45 p.m. They entered through the back door when no one answered the front, and one heard 3 loud thuds, but found nothing suspicious in the common areas. The bedroom door remained locked throughout the night. Blake spent the next 10 hours alone with Natalie's corpse, carefully inflicting superficial wounds on himself and perfecting the narrative he would present when he finally emerged at 9 a.m. to discover her death. Blake and Natalie had met during their sophomore year at Philo High School in Duncan Falls, Ohio. To most observers at the small school, they appeared to be a typical teenage couple who shared interests and seemed happy together. However, beneath the surface, Blake had exhibited concerning signs of possessiveness and control throughout their 3-year relationship. Friends later reported that he frequently questioned Natalie about her activities and became jealous of her interactions with others. The relationship officially ended in February 2023, just months before their graduation trip, following what court documents described as a pushing incident. But witness statements revealed the violence was more severe than initially reported. Blake had actually thrown Natalie across a room in front of their friends. This act of public violence should have served as a clear warning sign, but Natalie had minimized the incident and maintained her friendship with Blake even after ending their romantic relationship. Her forgiving nature may have prevented her from recognizing the true danger he posed. Investigators discovered that Blake had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, but this diagnosis did not excuse the deliberate and sustained nature of his violence against Natalie. The medical condition provided context, but not justification for his actions. School officials, including Principal Troy Dawson, expressed shock at the violence Blake proved capable of committing. Their community had failed to recognize the escalating warning signs of domestic abuse happening among their teenagers. Faced with overwhelming physical and digital evidence, Blake Linkous ultimately provided investigators with the final piece they needed: his own detailed confession to murdering Natalie Martin. During his second interview with Horry County Police, Blake finally abandoned his story about finding Natalie dead and attempting suicide. Blake admitted to becoming enraged after discovering Natalie was texting another boy, describing this as an unacceptable betrayal despite their months-long separation. His confession revealed the possessive mindset that had driven him to view Natalie as his property rather than an independent person. The confession provided details about the murder that only the perpetrator could know, including the duration and method of the strangulation. Blake also admitted to remaining in the bedroom with Natalie's body for hours, during which time he deliberately inflicted the wounds to his chest to support the suicide story he planned to tell investigators. Most significantly, Blake's confession revealed little genuine remorse for taking Natalie's life. His primary concern appeared to be avoiding consequences rather than accepting responsibility for destroying a young woman's future. On June 8, 2023, Blake William Linkous was formally arrested and charged with 1 count of murder. The arrest came exactly 1 month after their high school graduation, marking the end of his freedom and the beginning of his journey toward a lengthy prison sentence. Despite Blake's confession and overwhelming evidence, the path to justice exposed serious flaws in how the court system handles domestic violence cases. On June 29, 2023, 3rd Judicial Circuit Judge Thomas Cooper Jr. granted Blake a $150,000 bond, stating there was nothing in his background indicating he was a person of violence. This reasoning ignored the fact that Blake had just confessed to strangling an 18-year-old girl to death. For 635 days, Blake lived under house arrest at his parents' Ohio home, while Natalie's family grieved their daughter's death. The decision sent a troubling message about how the courts value the lives of domestic violence victims. On March 3, 2025, just as his trial was about to begin, Blake pleaded guilty to 1 count of murder. The guilty plea spared his victim's family the trauma of a trial, but also denied them the complete public airing of evidence they had waited nearly 2 years to witness. During the sentencing hearing, prosecutors presented key evidence and victim impact statements from Natalie's father, and best friend provided devastating testimony about the impact of Blake's crime. Judge Dedra Jefferson sentenced Blake to 45 years in prison without the possibility of parole, rejecting the defense's request for the minimum 30-year sentence. Manual strangulation takes an inordinate amount of force, the judge observed. Under those circumstances, the minimum sentence certainly would not be appropriate. "She was the love of my life," Blake had said to the court. "I swore to protect her, and I failed." Blake was handcuffed and led away to begin serving his sentence, finally facing meaningful consequences for the murder he had committed. But Blake's story didn't end with his sentencing. In December 2025, he filed a petition claiming, "I'm guilty of the situation, not the charge," seeking early release and still refusing to accept full responsibility for deliberately strangling an innocent young woman. Natalie's best friend, Brooklyn Farrell, transformed her grief into advocacy, educating others about the realities of teenage domestic violence. "I want other people who are like Natalie to know it is okay to reach out if you suspect anything or are going through any type of abuse. This does not just happen in movies or on TV shows. It can happen to anyone." The case revealed crucial lessons about recognizing escalating abuse in teenage relationships. Warning signs including physical violence, threatening messages, and controlling behavior had been present for months, but weren't fully understood by Natalie's support system. Natalie was supposed to attend college, study child education, fall in love with someone who cherished rather than controlled her. She was supposed to have decades of adventures, relationships, and dreams fulfilled. Instead, her story ended at 18 in a beach house bedroom, at the hands of someone who claimed to love her but couldn't let her go.